Well, hello. We probably don't have anybody listening yet, Jeremy, because this was impromptu. This was like, hey, Rob, I'm not working this afternoon. I got a little easy day. And I'm like, same. Let's chat
For
about
sure.
champions. We've been playing. We played, I played one game, real game last night after just opening the box. I figured that'd be cool to get like very first impressions outside of the demo. I mean, I've had demos, but, it was like one turn and they were really just showing the rules. This time I was showing someone else how to play the game, and it was a different experience. So, but maybe Jeremy,
I had my first game too on Wednesday, which is the miniature night at the Caboose. So we played on Wednesday. So,
and I heard your local gaming store has sold out of their inventory already.
Yeah, so he got Brian at the Loose Caboose got the starter package, which was I think 4 starter sets, some mats, some rule books, a few each of the initial launch company boxes, but also the Goblin and Night Stalker early box. So he sold out of all the starter sets are gone. The Twilight Kin boxes are gone. I think what's left, he only has like I think a Goblin and a Northern Alliance one left. So he's having to do a pre-order or a restock after only 1 week, which to me is like music to my ears. So
right, that's great. Yeah, our store, I don't know how many they got. I mean, they had a lot of our stuff that we pre-ordered behind the counter waiting for it. So they have like cubicles, almost like a comic hold, right, for us.
Oh, okay. So you have like a little box with all your stuff sort of.
Yeah, well, it's like a letter, and all my stuff goes into the Countercharge box.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, it sounds like he bought maybe 2 of the packages because I think there was like 8 starters there, and then like maybe 4 of each of the others. But to your point, what's really cool is if a store went all in, they didn't just get the initial 4 releases, which the first factions, which is the Faith and Fury starter, the Twilight Kin and the Northern Alliance. They also got the Night Stalkers and the Goblins, which aren't actually coming out until like the next 2 months.
And the bird is really cool.
Void Talon, right?
The Void Talon boss. And man, we'll talk about it more later, but the Night Stalker faction orders, they have some juicy orders. So Brian was coming into my nightmares, making himself at home. So
but let's start at the top, right? So we both picked up our stuff, and my initial reaction was, Mantic's gonna Mantic. So I opened up my deluxe mat, which by the way is amazing. It's a thinner neoprene, double-sided. I love it. It matches the terrain, the cardboard terrain that comes in the box. But this little note here, really made me laugh because, if you're reading this, we recommend that you unfold your gaming mat and roll it up using the bag provided for storage. This will help prevent creasing. So, Jeremy, what's not in the box?
A bag. So you can roll it up and keep. And I'll say this, it's the compliment sandwich, right? First off, the mat, amazing material, super high quality. You said in the box we get a bag, we don't get a bag. What the hell? And then the other half of the sandwich is that it's double-sided. So you have like a forest on one side and the snow on the other. So
Super
giving you those options. But I saw the same thing, Rob. When I opened it up, I was like, "Ooh, a gaming storage bag. Let me go back in the box." And there was nothing there, and I was like, "Oh,
it was great, but that's just classic Mantic. Sometimes it's one step backwards and 2 steps forward.
There's 2 steps forward, exactly. But as far as the quality of neoprene, I know you and I, Rob, we've been around a lot of neoprenes, right?
Yeah, this was good.
And this to me feels like a higher end.
I also like the fact that it's pretty thin. So number one, it was easier to roll, and to be fair, it's a smaller mat. But I just really enjoyed the fact that it is double-sided. The fact that they took the time. Not only is it double-sided, the sides match the double-sidedness of the terrain that's in the box.
Yes, the terrain that comes in
is the same woodland
footprints,
or
you can
ice.
flip. So
Yeah,
again,
yeah.
it gives you options to play 2 completely different battlefields based on what comes in the box.
So I know you got your stuff a little earlier this week. I got my stuff last night. Last night is Mantic Night at my friendly local watering hole / gaming store. It is War Room Hobbies here in Memphis, Tennessee. Mike Horner is, man, I've been around a lot of gaming stores. This is the best run gaming store I've ever been affiliated with. You know, that like literally, like, I'm glad that I'm a patron, because just professional is the only way I can describe it.
Yeah.
Anyways, so this was like, I basically bought my stuff, and I sat down and basically, maybe we'll talk about what you got, but I bought the 2-player starter, which is the Faith and Fury, and then I bought the Nia pre-mat. I didn't buy any of the extra other companies yet. You know, I wanted to, you know what, like, let's just see how it is. What did you end up getting, Jeremy?
Okay, so I did the full shebang. So I got the 2-player starter set, the neoprene mat, one each of the other faction boxes, and then the 3D terrain kit. So I got one of everything. Basically.
You are a crazy person. I love it. I love
it. Also, too, it's for me, but also it's like, again, trying to support my local store that doesn't have a lot of Mantic stuff going on. And Brian, the store owner, got the bigger buy-in so that we could get the stuff early, the other factions. So not just giving my money away, but wanting to invest and support, you know, my local store when they, you know, and spoiler alert, he sold out a bunch of his stuff, so it wasn't just me buying it. So yeah, so I did the full shebang basically.
Well, what's interesting is Mike got part of his shipment on Monday, but he didn't get the full shipment yet. So like, he held off until Wednesday to say, "Hey guys, it's here," because he was waiting for. There was like 2 shipments basically, and I think most of the players haven't gotten their stuff yet. So I'll be curious to see on Sunday what's left, because really, I mean, I don't know the pricing at your store, but like, we have like, it's basically a 10% discount on anything.
Yes.
And I think the Faith and Fury set was like $112, I think, is what I paid.
Like, yeah, that's what the Caboose does. He gives you a flat 15% off, I think 10 or 15% off of retail, just for, you know, you coming in and buying from him versus how you can get stuff cheaper online. You know what I mean? So
yeah. Well, we have a 10%, and then they have a membership program which gives you an additional 10%.
Oh, nice.
Really, in Tennessee, that just pays the tax, honestly.
Yeah, for sure.
But so I started, you know, I bought the 2-player starter set for Faith and Fury. The plan is, I think I maybe mentioned this on a cast, I'm going to do Basilean. I don't want to play Basilean in Kings of War, right? But I thought, man, it'd be kind of nice to do like an Inquisitor army, you know, or company in this case.
Yeah.
Where I only got to paint, you know, 25-ish, 26 models, whatever it is. And I did, I'm sure you noticed, but like, it's pretty cool that all the different companies, it's not a ton of models in any of these boxes. Like, you know, maybe from like 15 to, I mean, this one has 26 models for the Basilean, because you've got 5 horse, 10 crossbowmen, 10 spear, and then Alanis, which is cool. So basically what we did last night, Jeremy, is me and my buddy Josh just dug in, checked it out, did that whole thing, and we built some models, and we started with zoom in a little bit. We started it basically. I built the 2 characters from the 2-player starter. So
the 2-player starter.
That's the Bloody Cardinal, and basically Andy is getting the Forces of the Abyss, and I'm playing Basilean. So, anyways, great, really great models. I was really impressed by the models. Now, I had already seen these resins in the, what's it called, the event special Halo characters, but these are bigger. These are a bigger scale. They're multi-part. So I just thought, man, these are really, really nice. And Jeremy, how about them assembly instructions? They were amazing. Nice. Amazing. Color coded like the GW ones. And you've already only do you have yours built, you've already painted yours.
Yeah, so I did a quick. I busted out the speed paints and did a quick job on Lafael of just getting her ready. And yeah, assembly instructions great. I think the new mastercrafted resin, it's definitely improvement in quality of the resins they've done in the past. And I just think in general, all all of the champion models, they're all pretty cool. They're all solid, fun, cool models.
Yeah. Yeah, so for me, basically, I punched out all my tokens and I got everything assembled, and then let me remove this one. There we go. Let's do this. So I rolled out the cool mat. I'm going with the green side for my armies. So I think, I could be tempted to go white. I don't know, snow.
Yeah, mine are snow, so I'm going the other way. So
you're going the other way.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? We can't go both ways.
No. Yeah, you got.
I'm not in California.
Yeah, no. That's only for us, enlightened people in California. So you got to. I've got to go with the green side.
The green side. Yeah. So basically, we just rolled the mat out. We played with the characters, the heroes, but then for the bases, obviously, I just wrote on the base like this is the cavalry unit. And I like the names. So I was playing against Twilight Kin, the rejects. Yes, the sisters. I mean, very colorful names.
And yeah, the Impalers are Sisters of the Void, which I guess are Lafael had 3 sisters who accompanied her into the Void, and supposedly, I guess they all are her personal bodyguard now. So yeah, very cool.
And I will say the punch materials that like the tokens and stuff, really cool stuff, man. Like literally, I did not have a tape measure. Which I probably wish I would have had a tape measure because, laying out the tokens for the scenario that we'll talk about in a minute, it would have been better to have a tape measure. But literally, you can play this game if like I'm speaking for the 2-player starter, out of the box. It gives you everything. It even has a cardboard ruler. It gives you a little widget to do line of, arc, the 45-degree arc, and
yeah, I like how the components are as the rules are, and we'll teach you about this. It's teaching you how do you play a clean rank and flank Kings of War game. So you have your arc, you have your corner marker to mark a base if you want to move it, so you know where it needs to go back. So all of the components, I think, are thoughtfully put in here, not just to have components in here. They're in here for a reason.
Yeah, so this is us. This is my buddy Josh, who's been on the show before. He's a newer player, but he is, Jeremy. I like to think of him as my little Jeremy. Very infectious, very engaging, very gregarious, outgoing, very thoughtful, emotionally intelligent, just like a fun person to hang out with.
Awesome, cool.
So yeah, so he's playing Twilight Kin, and I'm playing Basilean, and so maybe we should just touch on how you play the game. And then as we get through the different phases, maybe we can touch on our individual thoughts of that. So let me get to the rulebook section that talks about that. And we've said this before. This is the best laid out rulebook ever.
Yeah, to me, it reminds me of, Rob, a lot of the 2nd edition Firefight rulebook, which is super clean, easy to navigate. Things are the things in the rulebook make sense on where they are. My only one question of the rule book that has been hot off the presses, clarified by Mr. Rob Berman, the creator of the game, is that the champion special rules, where it says all units within 9 inches or whatever get the special bonus, champions can use that rule on themselves, so they count as being a unit within themselves.
So I think Alanis' special rule, I think, is where you get basically Iron Resolve, and I think the Bloody Cardinal is like a 9-inch dread, maybe.
Yeah.
So that's cool that they're allowed to make use of.
And like Lafael's one is if you take a point of damage, you gain 2 extra attacks for that phase. So she can do that to herself too. Essentially.
So Josh didn't realize that cool rule until the end of the game. He was kicking himself because it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But so if you're playing a game. Yes. I like how they've really laid it out cleanly. So step 1, each player rolls as a D6, and the winner gets to decide if they're going to be the attacker or the defender. And, at face value, when you come into this, you don't really know what the difference is, but I think in the next couple of minutes, you'll know.
Yes.
Step 2, you roll a scenario. And
out of the scenario first, Rob.
No, I'm reading the book, man. Step 1.
Oh, let me take a look at it.
Because when you get the scenario, you need to know who's the attacker and who's the defender.
I think that was part of. Okay, hold on.
So
Let me
step
look.
one, both
We
players
played
begin
it
by
the other
rolling
way.
a d6. The person who rolls the highest can choose to be attacker or defender. Step two, roll or choose the scenario and place
Yeah, so
any
you
objective
you know who the attacker or defender is
when you get the scenario.
when you get the scenario. Okay.
Yep. Yeah. Because you got to know that because certain scenarios have
Yes.
different placement.
Oh yeah, but what I was trying to, I had a thought here. I got ahead of myself. So
Yeah.
continue.
Okay. So the second step is just pick a scenario.
Yeah.
Ironically, we both played the same scenario because I
Yes.
rolled treasure hunt, which is sort of a stockpile scenario. And you rolled one as well, right? You
Yeah,
played
we
that one
rolled
as
treasure
well.
hunt. We played treasure hunt as well. Yeah.
And just for little understanding, the map is 42 inches wide by 24 inches deep, right? So
Yeah.
the deployment zone for treasure hunt, and in fact, all 6 scenarios currently in the book are 5 inches deep, right? And basically, you put a stack of 2 loot tokens in the dead center of the board, and then along the center line, a stack of 2 from the left and right 10 inches in. So there's basically 6 tokens on the table, right? Is that right?
Yes, yeah. And what I was trying to say before, which is really interesting, is the attacker, you get to go first, right? The defender, however, gets to place the first piece of terrain.
Absolutely.
And when that step happens, you already know what the scenario is. And when knowing the scenario and who the attacker and defender is, you know what side you're deploying on.
Exactly.
So like in our time, Brian was putting the terrain on my side of the objective tokens. So to make it harder for me
Yep.
to get to the stockpile. So I think in placing the terrain, there definitely is, as far as what strategy is in this game that maybe isn't present, because a lot of it is more streamlined and simple in some ways. But one area where there is a little extra spice is the terrain deployment.
Right, and that's step number 3. The
Yeah.
defender chooses 3 pieces of terrain, 1 large and 2 small. Then the attacker takes the remaining terrain, 1 large and 1 small.
One small.
And
Yeah.
the 3 small, there's 5 pieces of terrain in the box, right? So the 3 small ones are walls, right? And then the 2 larges are a forest and then like a boulder formation, which is considered blocking terrain.
Yeah.
And so the defender gets to pick which block, which large piece they want, plus they get an additional wall, basically.
And I picked up, I know you didn't get it, but I picked up the 3D terrain
right,
set.
Which is the terrain crate stuff.
Yes, and what's interesting about it is that, and we didn't really catch this nuance, is you're still meant to use the 2D footprint for those terrain, because in the train you get a few trees, right? You don't get a full, so those trees then go on top of the footprint for trees, and then you get some walls, and then you get some rocks. So we used both. So we used the 2D that came with the set, and then we just put all the extra terrain bits on top.
Well, I think this is a great game for training you to play Kings of War, because what it's doing is showing you that in Kings of War we have area terrain.
Exactly.
Right. And so we've always done that with our obstacles, where you'd be able to pull the wall off and there's a little template there, or you remove the trees, but then there's something there like a footprint.
The footprint of the forest is still always present.
I guess, we talked about this last time. The only thing that's a little different, there's no hills in this game, but there is blocking terrain. There is woods.
And obstacles. And obstacles.
And obstacles, right? And so I guess technically there's not difficult terrain that are not woods. Actually, I think there are. I just don't think there's any in this.
They have rules for it, but it's more of, if you want to add that in, you can. But as far as what comes in the set, it's the impassable forest and 3 obstacles.
Right. So then step 4, when you're setting up the game, is you got to place the terrain, right? And the defender goes first, and they pick a piece of the terrain that they have, and they place it. Blocking terrain can't be on top of objectives, and you have to place the terrain 3 inches apart from other pieces of terrain. So it's a lot like some of the player placed terrain stuff we've used in the past. But to your point with Brian, I'm sure he was thinking about, okay, I know what he's trying to get to. I'm going to use this terrain to make it harder.
Yeah.
Right. When I placed my terrain, I put a wall where I thought I could get my crossbowman to, and then have like a nice little gun platform.
Yeah.
To have 2 of the,
some defense. Yeah.
And so basically the defender goes first, place the terrain, you go back and forth until all the terrain is done. And then I like the fact that, if you've picked to be the attacker, or the other person's picked to be, who's going first. You don't roll for it. The attacker well, the attacker, I misspoke. I jumped ahead. The attacker does go first, but also the attacker starts deployment first, right? So because technically both players are going to have 4 units. So
yeah, so basically the attacker, you get the benefit of going first, which is always a benefit, but as the defender, you get the bonus of you get to sort of set where terrain goes a little bit.
Yeah.
You have a little bit more agency in where the terrain is going to be. So there's a takeoff. So when we were playing and we got to this attacker defender, Brian and I were chit-chatting about, okay, well, what do we think is best? What should you be? And it was like, well, there's benefits in both in being attacker or defender.
Yeah, and we should also note you can't place terrain in the deployment zone, even though why would you? It's like 5 inches wide, right? It's or 5 inches deep. And so you deploy, alternating deployment, and then it's 6 ready to go. Attacker will be the first player in the first round. Now this is where we get into the game that I think is really interesting. We start with the command phase, and the command phase, both players simultaneously place their commands. And the way it works is there's 3 commands. There's a little counter for each of the commands. It has a symbol, right? And you can place a command on you can place 1 command on each of your 3 units. You cannot place them on their heroes, right? And yes. I think the really cool thing is that there's this other thing where you can do, like, I don't know, the Basilean have one where it's like you get unit strength 2. In the scenario we were playing, unit strength didn't matter. So most of the time, I just kept that one back, and that allowed me to roll one of the nerve dice in a combat, basically offensively, if the unit wasn't inspired. And I thought that's pretty interesting because some of the nerves, like my paladin troop of knights is 16 nerve, right? And he had some high stuff too. And so that gave me the ability, like, if you roll a 6, you're like, well, I'm going to reroll that 2 that I just got. But that was really interesting. Now, it's interesting too that if they're inspired, you can't reroll it, right? So I don't know. There's probably limitations because I think inspiring is 6 inches, just like in Kings of War.
Yeah, it is. It's the same.
So
it's the same distance.
But theoretically, maybe there's always going to be 1 unit that's out of range, maybe.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was super cool. So you start with the champions phase, and then really it's very much like Kings of War, right? We got movement, shooting, right? The shooting phase, which now says SH for shooting on the card. You have your melee phase or your melee phase, as Jeremy would like to say.
Yeah.
And then you have the nerve check, just like before.
Yeah.
And then it's the other person's turn. And so maybe we can kind of walk through the different phases and talk about our first impressions. What are your thoughts on the command phase?
It was really interesting. I found of the 3 orders that Twilight can have, 1 order was a detriment to your opponent's shooting. Now, I was playing against the Night Stalker company that has no shooting. So there may be times where not all 3 of your orders are always useful or applicable in any given moment of the game. But the fact that at least you can still use that token, like you said, as a reroll, it didn't make it feel like, oh, well, it was wasted. But that is an interesting thing, though, is that not all your commands are always going to be what you need or what you want based on what you're playing against. But in general,
I think for
sorry, go ahead.
No, I would say Basilean, we had 3. There's like one that's your unit is unit streak 2, one that your unit is defense +1, and then another one which is if you take damage in melee, basically you roll a die and it's on a 5 or 6, the enemy takes a point of damage. So it's like kind of like
holy retribution or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And to be fair, the unit strength one, there was no reason to play that because unit strength didn't matter in the scenario that we were playing.
Yeah. So Twilight Kin had a -1 to shooting, which I never used, right? But they had one called Void Mutations that you rolled a dice, and you either gained extra speed or an extra nerve. And the last one was -1 to hit only from the front, which was really nice on the Void Sisters, right? Because they're big shield. Yeah. So if I pulled that, if I got that order off on they were defense 6 and -1 to hit from the front, so they were a really tanky unit. But one of the ones that really stood out to me was the Night Stalker had this one where as soon as you reveal the order, you can redeploy that unit anywhere in your deployment zone. So Brian picked up loot tokens and then was like, I'm going back into the void. See you later. And he just redeployed that unit with the token like way back
on the next turn after he's already gotten it.
Yeah, after he's already gotten it.
Yeah.
And it just disappeared into the void and then reappeared elsewhere on the
cool.
holding the token. So we felt that command order was very thematic to the Night Stalkers.
Yeah.
They're one place in one moment, and then they're another place in another moment.
That's cool.
So yeah, that one felt pretty juicy theme-wise.
Once you get done with the command phase where you've deployed whatever you choose your commands face down on the unit, and we should mention you basically flip them over when you need to flip them over, like when that unit's being attacked or being, when they're pertinent, you flip them over, right? Or do you flip them over at the beginning of the?
Well, I think it says you flip them over all at once. But that was one question I had when we looked at. There didn't seem to be.
Oh, you're right. Once all tokens have been placed or set aside, both players flip their tokens over and reveal the faction orders.
So we just would flip them over.
You just flip them over.
Really,
yeah.
We didn't really go one.
And obviously, you got to tell them what it means because like the tokens don't really. It's a symbol, right? A rune, so you don't really know. So then we get into basically just regular Kings of War with a bunch of tweaks. So we get to the movement phase, right? And I would describe it as movement with nimble, but it's not really nimble because, halt is the same. Change facing is the same. Advance, you do now have 2 pivots.
Yes.
At the double, you do have 2 pivots. Charge, you have 2 pivots. Back, you have 1 pivot. And sidestep, for some reason, you have no pivots.
Yeah, and then at the double, you can't overtrain.
Correct. So those rules are the same. You can't go over a wall or through difficult terrain.
Otherwise, if it was the same as advance, it's like, well, they both have 2 pivots. Why wouldn't I always just move at the double? And the reason is because you can't move through terrain at the double.
Correct. So I thought that was cool. I think most of the other stuff was very similar in terms of unit interpretation.
You can only charge 1 facing.
Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about charging, right?
So 1
facing. A couple big changes. To your point, you can only charge 1 unit to a facing. So if you want to multi-charge, that's fine. But you can't. Let me see if I have a picture of that. I do. So look at this picture right here. So this is his sisters right here on the right side of the board. And that's my Alanis.
Yeah.
And then I have cavalry behind it. So he charged her. He didn't kill her.
Yeah.
I have to decide. Those are both in the front. I can either charge with Alanis or I can charge with the knights. I can't charge with both.
Now, Rob, did you catch the 2-inch pushback?
Oh, yes. So this is before that.
Okay. Gotcha.
This is before that. Yeah. Let's talk about that. So first of all, you can only charge 1 unit on a facing. And also I thought was really interesting. You have to have at least 1 inch of facing to charge. So for example, if a unit was behind a piece of blocking terrain and they just had a sliver coming out that you could see, even if you can touch it, it's got to be an inch.
No, you need it's like the no corner charges, but turned to 11, where it's now no corner charges, no 2 millimeter charges. No, you have to have a full inch of space.
Right. And then so the other thing that I thought was really cool is what happens after the combat is over, right? In the past, you would stay engaged, right? Or you would do your regroup activities, whether you want to go forward D6 or if you want to go backwards or sideways. But now, if you route the target, regrouping is the same. It's basically a change facing order. If you fall back, it's still D3. However, you have to stop an inch away from enemies. I thought that was interesting. That's a change. Right? You don't move the full distance. Forward is now only D3 inches. And again, you got to move the full distance, but if you get to an inch of an enemy unit, you got to stop. Now, that's the interesting stuff. But let's talk about the juicy stuff that I think might be telling us what's going on with 4th edition. At least we're thinking about it. So if the target remains and you don't route them, and we should mention, it's not easy to kill stuff in this game right off the bat because the knights have a nerve of 16. And if you're only getting 1 unit into combat, it's going to take a while, especially when Mean Rob is adopting the faction order that says I'm defense 6 because I'm +1. I'm defense 5, so now I'm +6. Or you have the sisters, right? With your defense 6 big shield. Hard to cut through that. So if you don't kill the unit, then there's now a thing called the pushback rule. So, and it basically says move the target unit directly away from all chargers by 2 inches. Imagine the momentum of the charge drives them a few steps back, and they make fallback, or they may fall back to make a return charge. But that's interesting on itself, right? So now they're disengaging. Very much feels like second edition, right? When we had the 1-inch bounce back. But the difference now is there's a rule called trapped. If the enemy unit is unable to comply with the full 2-inch pushback because there's something behind it, friends, enemies, blocking terrain, whatever, within 2 inches in the direction they are pushed towards, the enemy is trapped. If this happens, the enemy unit is not moved, and instead the chargers are moved directly 1 inch back or as close to 1 inch as possible. However, the trap unit suffers an additional D3 points of damage that does not trigger a new nerve test. The way this played out for me was really interesting. If I'm looking at this picture, Jeremy, essentially what happened is I got into the sisters. I didn't kill them, but I kept hitting them and hitting them and hitting them, and they bounced back. Right, they, I was able to move them back into difficult terrain or on that wall at some point.
Yeah,
and so there's an ebb and flow to the game where it's almost like it feels like the combat is flowing back and forth, and you're pushing the battle line. So yeah, super. I don't know.
And I was curious, Rob. I didn't see in the rule book that there is a thing called countercharge.
No, countercharge doesn't exist because I asked. We get into our first combat. I said, Josh, is there a countercharge in this game? Because that'd be really crappy for the podcast if we didn't have a countercharge.
Because we found where I charged into the flank of something and not in the front, they pushed back 2 inches and they couldn't see me because I'm not in there. I'm not in their arc.
There's not, but I'm thinking like if they wanted to apply this rule to Kings of War 4th edition, you still had like in 2nd edition we still had countercharge. It just meant like if you're charging a unit that charged you last turn, then it's counted as a countercharge, right? You don't have to be engaged to get a countercharge in 2nd edition, right?
Because that's interesting. Because if you charge something and it bounces back into difficult terrain when it charges,
well, that's true. But in 2nd edition, if to your point, in 2nd edition, if you got
no, I'm talking about just this game. So I'm not talking about
right. You can bounce them back into, but I'm just thinking like if they apply it to Kings of War, you would be able to push people back into difficult terrain. But if they kept the rules from 2nd edition, you would still have countercharge, which means
they would just say I'm issuing a countercharge or whatever.
Correct.
Which is,
But it's interesting that our great podcast is no longer in this game of Kings of War Champions.
Yes, no longer can you countercharge.
No longer can you countercharge. Yeah. So I thought that was cool. I mean, in terms of the nerve test for the I think it's just in general the nerve values are a little higher than you would expect for the smaller unit size footprints that we saw.
Yeah.
In addition, there are things like brutal and dread in the game. Different characters have different rules like that. So again, it's 2 dice, add the damage, just like before. The big one, obviously, that maybe we should mention is there's no waiver value. Yeah. So you're either fighting. Mm-hmm. So if I charge you, I either kill you and you're gone, potentially have to reroll if it's inspiring, or I don't kill you and I push you back.
Mm-hmm. You can still roll double sixes in some
Correct.
situations.
There is still exceptional results, right? Which is the double one, which means double one holds your ground, which means you're good. And you could still have double sixes. And even though you don't have wavering, you still have devastated unit. Like so essentially if you exceed their nerve value and then roll double one,
snakes them,
they're still devastated like in Kings of War. And that's where you half the number of attacks. So super interesting. Any more on the melee phase? Any more comments on that?
And you're going to be familiar with certain rules. Like I had some guys that had elite, crushing strength. A lot of those rules.
No thunder charge though. I didn't see any thunder charge in the game.
I didn't see any thunderous either on any of my stuff. But I haven't.
So disordered is disordered a thing?
Yes, because some units can shoot, right? So
I'm just gonna see. I don't remember. I'm trying to remember if I even saw it in the range phase. It didn't come up. Mm-hmm. Let's see. Terrain. Where am I going?
So I know there is a paragraph on disordered in there somewhere.
Yeah, disordered. Here we go. Mm-hmm. Yeah, disordered units cannot use ranged attacks. Units that have been charged or have been charged and are therefore in base contact with enemy troops cannot use or be targeted by range attacks unless specifically allowed.
She says that's one cool thing that Lafael can do. She has like it's a special calling, like I don't care or whatever, and she can shoot at units that are in combat.
What's interesting though, they're not even saying that you took a damage. It's just saying if you got charged last turn, you can't, right? Actually, let me go to 25, page 25, and see what it says. All right, so units that have suffered at least 1 point of damage in the combat phase are disordered. Units that remain disordered until the end of their next turn, and then no attacks, because this is because they have been disrupted. But yeah, okay, so that's the same. That's cool. Well, maybe let's get into the shooting phase. Well, they still call it the range phase, but it has a shoot value.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure why. I think they said on our podcast that they made it the shoot stat to make it make sense.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I would have been more consistent. I would have just called the shooting phase. I don't know. Maybe Warhammer has that. Maybe that's why they don't call it that.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of those changes that I feel like doesn't. I mean, they could have just kept it ranged. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it would have been. I don't think it would have been.
So I mean, shooting is just like before, right?
Yeah.
With the one exception, which is there's no height. So there's no height in the game, and so cover is generated a little bit different. But basically, you pick a target, you make sure you have line of sight to it, right? You roll the hit, you roll the damage. And it looks like, bows are still 24 inches. I had some crossbows that were, I think they were 12 inches. My crossbows, I think. But yeah, I mean, but what's interesting is you still get -1 to cover. And, essentially cover is if 50% of the base is obscured, it's cover. Or if you're in the woods, 50%, it's cover. And so that's cool. But now if you halt, you get +1 for aiming.
Yeah.
Right? That's pretty neat. So, if you have like my crossbows hits on 5s, so now if I stand still, I can hit on 4s. So I thought that's pretty cool. But I don't know. I only had like maybe 2 rounds of shooting in the game. How about you? How'd you find shooting?
Lafael has a shooting attack. Her shooting attack is more interesting had we known for sure she could use her ability on herself, because her ability is 2 extra attacks for 1 damage. But if she does any damage with her shooting attack, she heals for 1 damage. So she could have been giving herself more attacks with her shooting by taking damage to then heal if she does damage to you to get rid of that damage. So I found the shooting was more effective at the end of the game because he killed a bunch of my stuff. And all I had left with Lafael, and she was just running around trying to pick off damage on the last few things. It definitely felt like a sliver of the game, but I don't think you're going to have any factions or any shooting in this game that's like you shot off a unit right off the turn before I got a chance to use anything. Definitely feels like it's a icing on the cake, but it's not like a core. This game, I think, is built around you fighting each other in melee. You're muted.
It wouldn't be a podcast or a live stream without me muting myself, right?
Very true.
I love the aggressiveness of this game. It gets in your face quick. Like we were like on turn 2, we were fighting, and it was like, and to be fair, it was over by turn 4.
Yeah,
because essentially, I think the strategies that you have so few units, you really got to be paying attention to what you do. You cannot afford to get into this 2 or 3 turn protracted combat with units that are better than you, because you're going to lose your unit.
Yeah,
because there's nothing you can. Because I don't. I mean, I guess Alanis had the ability to basically give Iron Resolve. So when I take a damage, if I pass my nerve test, then I get a point back. But I didn't. I mean, maybe some armies have heal, but I didn't have any heal.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was the range phase. We talked about the nerve phase. Maybe we should just talk a little bit about the actual like in this picture that we got shown here. We're playing stockpile, right? So you can see that 3 units have tokens that are sitting on their base. Then there's an additional, well, actually 4, because Lafael had one as well. Now, interesting thing about that, right? We don't have individuals in this game. So Alanis was able to, which this is the turn subsequent to that, but Alanis was able to get a flank charge on a unit that was over to the right. And, she had 5 attacks. It goes to 10. So there's no individuals, so they can pick up tokens and they can fight with double their attacks.
Yeah.
I guess the other change that was interesting, it didn't come into play because I don't know how you get a rear charge unless you have a flyer, which is the now triple attacks is no longer in the rear. It's double your attacks and +1 to hit. All right.
Yeah.
Let's see if I can. Yeah. What were your thoughts about this scenario? So this was stockpile, basically. Well, it's called treasure hunt, but it's basically three piles of 2 tokens each.
It was interesting. I think this feels one, it's teaching people what loot tokens do. So again, if we're viewing this, to me, Kings of War Champions feels much more, it is what it says on the box, right?
Yeah.
An intro, I think it's way more consistent with teaching you what Kings of War is than, let's say, Spear Point is to AOS. I mean, Champions very much it's prepping you to learn how to play Kings of War. So this scenario teaches you what loot tokens do. The fact that it reduces your speed
to 5, and
you pick them up, you score them at the end of the game. So I think I like that as a way to teach you how do loot tokens work. The scenario was, again, this is a really good scenario for Night Stalkers. Like I said, he picked up tokens and then was like, peace out, and was transporting away.
Yeah.
But it felt to me like an interesting scenario. A bunch of the other scenarios I'm excited to try because they have progressive scoring where you're scoring points each round, whereas this was more traditional Kings of War where you score at the end of the but what was interesting for us, by the end of the scenario, there wasn't a lot of stuff left alive. So we had a lot of tokens just on the ground, unheld by anyone, as I was trying to like shoot off units or kill stuff before.
We ended at 4, and basically he only had Lafael left. So he's like, okay, dude, I'm not going to win this game.
That's funny. I only had Lafael left too in my game. So
yeah. And I had everything left. Actually, he might have got the crossbows because the Lafael does have a shooting attack, and the crossbows are pretty. They're nice magnets for those.
Which I didn't even realize. The shooting attack has a leader vicious. I forget what it was, but
all the Bastilian stuff has basically elite.
Okay.
Whether it's a shooting unit, it's elite for vicious. They don't call it I guess they do call it.
Well, sometimes they do, but her rule was called Deadeye. So
just Deadeye is the same one that the crossbows and Bastilian have.
So just make sure you fully read the your unit card because you may have a special.
Big fan of the fact though that the unit cards have all the rules. I didn't have to look at the book, right? Like all the unit stuff is on the card. So
a nice little fluff piece on the backside too, which I thought was cool. So
yeah, I don't know. What were your overall impressions of the game?
Like I said, they are who we thought they were. This game is very much what they said it was, which is an introduction to Kings of War. How do you play rank and flank gaming, but with a little extra spice added? So if you only want to exist in just this game and it scratches that itch enough for you, there's enough going on that you can. But it still is on that paradigm, leaning more towards an easy to play pickup intro to how do you play Kings of War and how do you play rank and flank gaming. So if that is their goal with this, which is let's release a game that teaches you how to play Kings of War, that's more accessible model-wise, has a little extra flavor in there for those people who just want to exist in this realm, I think in playing it, it's exactly what they said, what the marketing, what the vision, mission, values.
It does what it says on the tin.
That's my sense, Rob. What was your sense?
Same thing. But I would say that it maybe undersold me on the fact that this game is so quick. I loved it. It was like, it did not overstay its welcome. It's like, you know what? It felt like when I started to play Vanguard, I was like, oh, this could be cool. I'm going to have like a border clash where the Vanguard units are going to run in there and they're going to mix it up and it's going to be over. Instead, that devolved into knock the guy down. He gets back up. This was like a quick skirmish, and it was decisive, quick. Like one mistake, and it's a knockout punch. So I really like, and you can re-practice. Maybe we played an hour. I don't even think we played an hour. I mean, it was quick.
Yeah, you could get multiple games of this so that's why I really think the best 2 out of 3 is maybe a format for this game.
I'm thinking about what you said too, about maybe it's where you have a couple of different factions.
Yes.
But even if it's, you got to play at least 3 times, and if you've picked attacker, then maybe the next game in that series, the player gets the other player that lost. Maybe
I think there's something we can design around that and how it works. But no, we felt it went super quick, and we were in one of those things where Brian was work playing, as many of the game store owners would.
Trying to play while he's also managing the store.
While technically on the but it was. He left, he came back. We knew exactly where we were. It was pretty. So again, that sort of, it is what it says on the tin. That was like my big takeaway, is that if you want someone to learn how to play rank and flank gaming, there is not a better. And I know I'm saying this as a lover of Mantic, but Rob, we will critique when critique is due, right? There is not a better entry into rank and flank gaming on the market than this game. It's the best by far, I think.
100%. It's great. What did Brian think about the game?
He really liked it. So Brian is one of those great game store owners who he's got Blood Angels, he's got a Conquest army, he's got an AOS army, he's got an army for any game system that he sells in his store, so that if you want to get into a game, you're guaranteed to at least be able to get a game in with him, right? And that's what when he said, after doing a lot of AOS and Spearhead, and having played traditional Kings of War, he really liked that champions felt so much like this is what Kings of War is like, but on a smaller scale. It didn't have the extra flavor added, didn't take away from the core rules, or it wasn't a lot. So he felt, as a representation of what Kings of War is, this game is really good for that, but has enough going on. You know,
when you walk in, you're in the food court in the mall, and the person at the Chinese food's like, sample. Yeah. That's what it is. You put it in your mouth, you're like, oh, this is pretty good sweet and sour chicken. I think I'll order I'll order an entree.
Yeah. So I'm hoping that if people like this, they'll be like, oh, this is really cool. I like the rules mechanics. What's Kings of War like? And I would tell them it's more units. It's a little bit more complex in places, but it's essentially the same vibe. And that's sort of like the early sense I've been getting.
And how did you find, obviously we showed this earlier, the model that you painted. How'd you find painting it?
Oh, super fun. I mean, I thought as a design, really interesting, really cool unit. I like the flavor that, she was banished to the void and had legs, and then part of her way to get out was she was corrupted enough that when she exited the void, she now had these cool spider legs or whatever. So and I've looked at the champions for the other, sometimes, Rob, when you see a mini, you want it to be, oh, wow, that's really cool. I want to paint that model.
They're all like that.
And some companies have been better. And that's always been, I think, a critique with Mantic is I want to be able to want to. It's like, I want you to want to wash the dishes, right? It's like, I want to buy Mantic models, as opposed to just, well, it's an okay model and I'm supporting the company.
Right. But
I feel in general, all of these new champion models are all pretty cool. So, I really enjoyed painting her. She's got, I think, to the point of I started super basic. And then as we started to paint it a little bit more, like her flames, I went in there and was starting to do a little bit more details on top of the speed paint. So,
he's a big model.
I loved it so much. I hope one day I know there was nothing official, and I mean, I think it would be silly for them not to eventually add these into the main game as somehow, add them into the main game. So I'm hoping in the next year or so, maybe we see that, because the flavor and fluff, and they're all really interesting. Like the Goblin one with the mech shooting mob beasts out of his, I mean, very cool stuff.
And I think if you look at the models, these hero characters, like, okay, where does this go in Kings of War? I love the fact that what would be traditionally an individual was on a 40, and what was traditionally on a 40 is on a 50 now.
Yeah.
So I liked the commanding presence of the heroes. I thought the bigger base kind of made them stand out. Gives them extra range on their inspiring or their dread. If you have, you know what I mean? Like, it just made them feel like a little bit more powerful heroes.
And you could do like a little diorama. They come with like almost on a little diorama, which is interesting.
Yeah. Alanis has like a broken temple, basically. She's walking over, right? Man, I love the models, the basing and the model, and it went together really easily. And I also liked, I was bending it a little bit. It had a little bit of flex, but it was stiff enough that I had good detail. It wasn't bendy, I guess what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Right. It wasn't bendy, but on the same token, it didn't snap. It wouldn't, it wasn't like resin. So whatever material they're using, keep on it, because it's
it's better. I mean, it is a better quality. It's still resin, right? And you still got to like clean it before you prime it. That was one issue I had. I primed it and then I missed cleaning it, so I had one section that was not taking paint. So I had to, I put some varnish on it and some matte varnish, and then the paint took after that point. But
I haven't cleaned mine yet.
Make sure
what I'm going to do, Jeremy, is I'm going to paint all my my units and I'm saving Alanis as like the ice, the
your reward. Your
yeah,
reward.
like, okay, now you get to paint the cool model.
Yeah.
Not the stuff that's been out. Oh, the plastic knights for Basileia, dude.
Oh, what did you think of those? Because
Love
that's
them.
a new kit.
They're very much like non-dead versions of the EOD ones. That's what it felt like to me.
Okay.
Like the way they went together,
Uh-huh.
the way the extra armor bits fell, very much reminding me of doing the EOD. Now, to be fair for EOD, I've only built like 750 points of EOD, but I do have a couple troops of those knights, and so I thought it was great. I think there's some opportunity though, because the horses are separate from the rider, so there's probably some opportunities to maybe kit bash some stuff now that you have a hard plastic live horse, right?
Yeah, maybe do some cab for other factions if you want it.
Or maybe they make a red, like maybe they make in the vault like this is Basilean, but maybe they make an Order of the Green Lady rider, or maybe a different alternate head.
So use that horse for multiple kits, maybe, and then that would be interesting.
I mean, Archon Studios, everything they make, chef's kiss, man. Their plastics is really very good, very good. So I don't know. We wanted to see it together and chat about what we thought about the game and first impressions. I mean, from my perspective, this is a home run, and I'm excited this weekend to see people converge on War hobbies and we get some games in. Now, I'm also nervous about Jeff and Andy solving the game because there's not as many variables, but that's okay because it's not really designed for that, right? Like,
no, it's not, and it's not. That is definitely what it's not. It is. I don't think it is a standalone skirmish style game where there's fathoms of deep strategy to explore. And I don't think that's not what it's trying to, but this is a game that is trying to be what it's trying to be, which is an intro to rank and flank gaming, but with a little extra spice. So if it's all you want to play and you just want to get, hey guys, we got 45 minutes to get a rank and flank miniature game in. Let's bust out champions and play that.
And so if you don't want to haul a big thing to like a bunch of stuff to the gaming store, I mean, it's going to be a small little cardboard box with like 4 units and some dice.
So it is what they say that it is, which is, and then if you want something more deep, work on your bigger Kings of War army and play traditional Kings of War.
Yeah.
So
what I would say too to close this out is that everything that they've done here surprised me, because we always find something a little kink in the armor. Okay, there is this kink in the armor, right, where they told us we got a bag but we didn't. But that's the only kink I found.
The champions rule, I think they should have stated in the rule book whether or not the champions is considered.
Well, there could be some. You're right. To be fair, I haven't only played but three different companies at this point, so there may be some rules that have to be clarified. But
it's small, and like Rob was great, and he's like, "Oh, let me get back to you real quick," and he got back to me. So so not a huge hurdle.
2 thumbs up for me.
Definitely. To me, it's what they've always needed, which is an entry game into Kings of War, an entry game into Rank and Flank, and also an entry game into the world of Panathor beyond just, we've been talking about playing in Panathor, Rob, and this, with all the extra names and fluff and whatever, I truly felt like this is another great tool to that hashtag trademark.
It was funny because as I was playing Josh, I'm like, well, those are impalers. He's like, no, those are the sisters. Like he was like, no, these are the rejects, mutants, right? And then the character that's on the skiff, right? Just super
Captain Grimdance.
Yeah, just like so soaking with
who, speaking of, Captain Grimdance did not double check his speed, so he was then charged by the Void Hammers and murdered outright. So this is not a.
I got Alanis into the flank of him, and it was over because he sent him into the Knights, and they bounced. And then Alanis was like, "I'll take you off, sucker."
Exactly. So again, this is teaching you too the importance.
Watch flanks, bro.
Watch your flanks. Check your speed. Where am I? So again, that's what I love so much about this so far in my initial experience is all of the things that are important to learn being new to rank and flank gaming, flanks, rears, pre-measured distances. Those are all here, but at a more accessible, smaller scale. So again, it's getting people ready to enter into the bigger world.
And I think I had a thought that like, maybe they're going to need to continue to add more and more companies to keep the game fresh, but they can just bring out more scenarios.
Yeah.
Or they could bring out alternate heroes for existing companies, right? Like a la War Machine, where you've got different casters for Khador,
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what makes sense to me is you can either expand it faction wise, or if Basileia, there's Alanis, or there's Arturius Doomhammer or whatever. Heinrich Schliemann is the other
Well, hey,
commander.
maybe we need
And
to get Mark Barber and some of his characters on the table.
Exactly, and
Orion would be awesome.
Yeah, exactly. And then there they just released one new character, and then in Orion's regiment, he's got a troop of Sisterhood infantry. He's got maybe he has a Phoenix or something. You know what I mean? So I think there's lots of ways you could add to this if you wanted, or maybe they're just going to let it exist for a while. I mean, there's a bunch of different.
There's still a bunch coming out.
Like Trident Realms has still got to come out.
Dude, I gotta buy the Halfling box. That
Halfling
hero on that
box
crazy mechanical death trap thing. I mean, it's so cool. So if you haven't gotten the book, I would highly recommend you picking up the book. And maybe we'll just talk about what are the entry points here. In my mind, there's two ways to enter this game. One is you just buy the 2-player starter. It gives you everything you need. And if you want to play either the Abyssals or you want to play a Basilean, just buy the 2-player starter because it was $120. Right. The other way is if you want to play one of the other 4 factions, is you buy the rule book
and
that comes with the tokens, right?
Yes.
And then you buy a separate faction box, whether it's the goblins, the knights.
The rule book comes with the punch out sheets in it.
Correct.
So you're going to get all.
The only thing it doesn't, I don't think it comes with. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is the rule book doesn't come with the paper mat?
I do not think it does, but I'm 90.
But
that's a good question.
I mean,
I'm not sure.
Let's be honest. I'm not going to play with the paper. I gave my paper mat away last night to Josh.
No, I'm going to tell you.
Neoprene mat all the way.
Buy the neoprene mat. It's the fact that it gives you double on each side and the quality is really high.
Did you sleep with it last night? Did you have it in your bed as your blanket?
I cuddled up with it.
Your blankie.
I like to sleep cool, so I made sure I cuddled up with the snow side. To stay nice and chilly. But that is one. I think your quality of life is going to be really high. Just get the neoprene mat.
Well, let's maybe just real quick talk about the podcast. What's going on?
Sure.
We just released an episode called Another Lore Master Library with Mark Barber. Interesting. It was the first time we went back in time. So we had already had Mark on to talk about Steps of Deliverance back in 2019. So now we're like 6 years later to talk about the same book, but in a much deeper, with a much deeper conversation. So if you're interested in Basilean, or you're just getting into the books, it's Steps of Deliverance is a great first book.
And I want to give a special shout out to Brandon and Winged Hussar. I just this week got my box. You can kind of see it right there. That box is full of Winged Hussar Kings of War novels for Masters Prize support.
That's
so
amazing.
thank you. Yeah, thank you so much to Winged Hussar and Brandon and the Ross Bonds. So we'll have a bunch of awesome prizes, novels.
And some of the authors will be there. So Mike Rossi, if his book's in there, you can get him to sign it. Yeah. Ben Stoddard should be there.
Ben Stoddard will be there. So So just since we're talking about that, special thanks. Super nice that Brandon was like, "Oh yeah, no problem, man. What do you need? I'm happy to send it to you." So thank you so much to Winged Hussar.
Yeah. So Lore Master Library just dropped. We have another conversation from Adepticon with a YouTube channel called Family of Gamers 777, where, as I like to say, we right the wrong 10 years in the making. So we have a great conversation. We talk a lot about sci-fi because that's their bent. And then we transition into they're moving into Kings of War, and we talk a lot about that. So very candid conversation with a lot of hot takes. So just be ready for a spicy conversation. That'll come out soon. And I don't even we got more list builders to put out. Yeah. We have Order of Green Lady episode coming at some point. So they're more to come. Again, I always say this, but if you want to hear something, you have a good topic suggestion, just reach out to me or Jeremy.
Yeah, I'm working on an episode. Really excited. Game MV is sponsoring at Masters. We're going to have First Devil. We're calling it the convention first aid table. So we're going to have a table at Masters that's going to have glue, X-Acto knives. It's going to have a paint station set up so that if you have any last minute stuff you need to work on. And Game MV,
the wet palette there with some paints.
Game MV is going to be sponsoring so I'm working on getting the president of their company Kit on for an episode. Yeah, Kit. Mm-hmm. Working on getting Kit on to come talk about all things Game MV. So so like you said, lots of episodes planned over the rest of spring, and now I can't believe it, dude. Rob, it's already May. It's going to be Masters here in like a blink of an eye.
Well, I've still got a 1 day prep tournament here locally for
Yeah.
Kings of Memphis. We're going to play.
Oh yeah, because you got Kings of Memphis coming.
Right,
up
we're going to
too.
play 3 of the scenarios just to kick the
Mhm.
wheels, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then June 21st and 22nd.
Wow,
Is Kings
so
of Memphis.
just around,
And we got
just around.
26 signed up, so that's a pretty good number. I wouldn't hate getting to 32 just to have a little extra in case we have some drops. And Mark and Mike had a great idea that we're doing this year. We're going to have the back room set up with 2 dripping with theme tables where that is the third player. And if you play a game and you're like at the bottom tables, you're like, I want to go play in the back room on that cool river table. You just go play on the table that's completely not balanced, but is completely cool.
Nice,
right?
Nice. That's a cool.
That'll
cool
be a lot
idea.
of fun. Yeah. One of these days, Jeremy, we'll get you to come to Memphis
next year. No, I'm saying it right now. I'm coming next year. This year, just with hosting Masters, it was too crazy.
You heard it here first, everybody. Yeah. We're gonna hold them to it.
Yeah, but count me out. Let's hit 40 players next year. Let's make it I love all your fluff, your theme. I've always wanted to go to Memphis just as a city to explore.
Yeah.
So
there's a lot to do here. Birthplace of rock and roll. In terms of the event itself, we do owe it to people to give them an explanation or review of the scoring system we use, because it is very different in the sense that you play the scenario, you have a secondary set of objectives, but killing your opponent is not part of it. So I think it'll be interesting. I just like to do things differently. If everybody's playing blackjack, I don't want to play blackjack.
Yeah, try something different.
Try something different. And the people have enjoyed it because we're getting different armies to show up to this event. People can bring different armies because armies that have a hard time killing, right, or losing the attrition battle. You can bring something. This is the place where you can bring 16 troops of Fleabag Riders and maybe win the event because you can win on scenario.
And we've always said, Rob, having a yearly tournament schedule that within that schedule has lots of different options to styles of events, that's great for the overall health of the game, I think.
100%.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I'm really excited. And this year, the other thing I did was I made some cards up for the brawlers or for the bards. And it's going to be cool. Everybody that plays in our event, they're going to get a copy of their bard like a little playing card. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, should be fun. So well, all right, we hit an hour. I think that's good for an impromptu one. Literally, guys, if you're catching this later, we decided to do this 15 minutes before we went live. So
yes,
this is us.
This is
the unprepared Countercharge.
Yeah, my messy game room.
Yeah, I'm liking though that you're over there getting into the vintage collection down there. I see.
Oh Star Wars. This is the Armorer's Forge play set. Yeah, so I've decided when it comes to Star Wars action figures, I'm not going to do Black Series. I'm going to do their vintage collection. It's too big, and then since I'm doing a little Marvel, which is 6-inch Marvel Legends, and also 3 3/4 was my jam as a kid. So the vintage collection that's 3 3/4, it has all these great vehicles. I've always been a vehicles fan. Right?
Yeah, you can just see. My camera's not on a very long leash, but you can see that's most of them. They don't all fit over there. I have a cabinet on the other end of the room over there that has
well, and I did get this, Rob. I don't know if I've showed this to you yet.
Let me see.
The Joy Toy.
Okay, so I'm up to 3 Imperial Fist Joy Toy Space Marines. Now they're moving into Heresy, so I'm not about that life. So
when you want to talk toy quality, though, holy crap,
they're good. They're very good.
Joy Toy is next level.
They're very good. I will say, I think I told you this though. The difference between like the high end characters for Imperial Fist and your base Space Marine, there's a difference. Like the paint color is a little different and stuff, so you can see it. Yeah. So, but awesome.
So I have that, and then I have one of just the regular.
Yeah, because gotta have some Sisters of Battle, man.
That's like one of my favorite 40K factions, so that's sort of where I'm starting.
Yeah, and I'm building. I think I've mentioned this. I'm building Imperial Fists slowly. Right, it takes a long time.
Yeah,
especially that I don't have extra time, so. Trying to and I'm working on terrain for Kings of
I mean, we still got to do our action figure episode. Rob and I have been talking about that. We were doing a Countercharge action figure episode since that's like Rob's and I's other great passion is collecting
nostalgia. That's what it's called.
We're just big kids, Rob. Basically,
100%. This is the newer Cobra Commander with the vac metal faceplate. Pretty sweet.
Yes. As opposed to they have him with the cowl too in the classified.
Okay. No cowl
No.
because
Interesting.
issues here in the United States with the cowl, I guess. So
Okay.
no.
Oh, because it's okay.
Yeah. So no. Maybe someday.
Yeah.
But I think we're up to like 3 or 4 versions of him, and there's like a San Diego Comic-Con exclusive one that's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
That's
do they have a 6-inch Pythona in the
It's coming.
series?
It's coming. The only one we have right now is
Lance
Nemesis Immortal because they don't have the rights. It's called Immortal now instead of Nemesis
Enforcer. They can't say Nemesis Enforcer.
Yeah, I don't know if I can.
Dude,
so
him
right.
when he brawls with Sergeant Slaughter.
Right there, see him?
Oh, yeah.
He's huge, man. He's bigger, and you see you standing in front of him. I was once a man. Commander.
I was once a man.
Yeah. So they're coming. Pythona and Globulus, they're coming at some point.
Is it Roadblock who becomes blind and has to
Yeah.
carry him?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh man.
And they have the snake that's like rolled up that he would carry.
Yeah,
like,
when he was devolving.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Well, all right. We probably lost all of our listeners at this point. Because
Frank Welker, right? Frank Welker was Cobra Commander. Did the voice for
Cobra dude
and Starscream.
The fact that you said that, you've just lost all your street cred.
Who was it?
I'm brain farting. His name is Chris. He's the same guy that did Starscream.
And I'm pretty sure that's Frank Welker.
That's not him. It's Chris Latta is his name. Latta.
Commander.
Latta is his name.
Christopher Collins.
Well, his name is Chris Latta. That's what his stage. So that's what he's known as in the thing. But yeah, it's the same guy. Chris Collins. He's a comedian. But he talks like I can't do it. But he did Cobra Commander. He did Starscream.
He did Frank Welker voice. There.
Megatron.
Okay,
I was Megatron.
Right? Yeah. Okay. Got it. Yeah. Because I knew it was Starscream and Cobra Commander. I knew were the same voice, but I didn't. Oh wow.
Well, they didn't know they were gonna get like a little extra bonus.
Yeah.
They didn't know.
Watch this is the stuff that made us, right? They have the documentary series. Their G.I. Joe documentary is pretty good.
It's very good. And that company, Nacelle, has their own toy line now, and they're bringing out like biker mice from Mars. Like, I never got into that as a kid, but and then they had like I can't remember all the names, but they've got a bunch of stuff. And they have a new cartoon that's out with like on Tubi that is part of the Rock's like production company about these robots that are like a 90s, 80s toy. So they got a lot of those.
Yeah, it's a good time to be a toy collector right now. There's lots of cool stuff out
Too much. Now, while we're on the subject, we should probably talk about Diamond Comics though, right? Like Diamond's Comics, which is owner of Alliance Distributors, which is a huge gaming distribution company. I think they might be the biggest. They're in bankruptcy court, and it's been a blank show, right? I'm not going to class, but it's
I know there's been some fraud allegations, right? I think I had read.
Yeah, so they got a blank. They went through bankruptcy. They had a bidding process. A company called Alliance Entertainment, not the same as Alliance Distributor, won the bid. Then Diamond tried to circumvent the official winner by getting some other people like Wiz Kids and some other people to be involved. NECA, which is a toy company, right?
Yeah.
Like and Alliance Entertainment sued them.
Okay.
So they end up going with that bid. But now Alliance is suing them again because like they won the bid, but nobody told them they're losing like Wizards of the Coast accounts. Like big portions of their business is going away. It's like, well, I probably wouldn't have bought that company if
had we known
this. So it's a complete crap show. There is a company called Universal Distribution in Canada that was like second place. So maybe they'll end up winning at least the Alliance piece, the Alliance distribution piece. But why are we bringing this up? Well, in the United States, it's going to affect Mantic for sure because you can buy Mantic directly, but I don't know. Is Brian buying direct for Loose Caboose?
He is, and I know that he also had multiple shipments. I think multiple shipments may be a way to deal with tariff issues because that's anher issue now, right?
Yeah, well, from the UK, the tariffs haven't changed, so it's not a big deal. Yeah. Like,
I know Atomic Mass Games has.
Well, if you're making out of China, then you potentially have some
stuff, and then CMON is having some issues.
Well,
right
CMON,
now,
yes. So CMON, Cool Mini or not, they have an issue where I think they have announced they are going to have they have a loss that they didn't expect to see coming, and so financially they're not as solid.
And I think they still have some big Kickstarters, multi-million-dollar Kickstarters.
I think Ronnie said, I thought it was 8, but I think when we interviewed Ronnie, he said 10. They're undelivered, so it's like, oof.
Big. I mean, multi-million-dollar Kickstarters.
Correct.
Right?
And the problem is with Kickstarter, and we're really getting into the weeds here, and that's fine. And we should probably spin this off into a whole episode, but we used to do a lot of Kickstarter talk, and I think we're at a point now where a lot of Kickstarters are not the original intention, which is this is a new company with a great idea and they don't have any other way to get funding, so they crowdsource it. We have big companies using it as a marketing platform, which fine, that's fair play to them. But they're basically taking a Kickstarter to pay for the last Kickstarter and the last Kickstarter. And it's almost become a Ponzi scheme where like this one Kickstarter is paying for the last 3 or 4. And it's getting more and more and more. And really all it takes is one poor Kickstarter to knock the whole house of cards over. So
it's an interesting time we live in, my friend.
Podcast called Board Games Insider. Great podcast. You should give it a listen.
I will. I'm not familiar with that one.
A lot of talk about this. Actually, the host was on our episode 500, Stephen Bonacore.
Okay.
He had Mark had gotten a little bumper from him. So give it a listen. It's a great podcast. It goes on a lot more business stuff. So all right.
Okay.
If people want to hear more of this rambling stuff that we had at the end, let us know, because I have a lot to say.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't want to make people that are here to hear Countercharge talk
devolve into an hour of industry. You
know what? We need to get Ronnie on again, because Ronnie likes to talk shop sometimes. Yeah. We need to get him on again.
And at Adepticon, I think he had an adult beverage or two by the time.
For sure. And he definitely was very open with us when we talked to him. But he was pressed for time, right? So we didn't have him on as long.
Oh yeah, because he was on the plane the very next day.
So we got him on when we could.
Was out of there.
But now more things have been announced and released, and Champions out. It's probably high time to.
Well, I have one quick note. We're really excited. I think we have about 16 or 17 already signed up for Best of the Rest.
That's fantastic.
Which is looking.
That's good. I haven't signed up yet. I need to do that.
Our max is, I think we can do 32. So we're on the home. We're hoping to have Best of the Rest. And if you hadn't seen it already, we are starting to share some really great stuff. One quick thing, let me grab this super fast before we end.
And while you're bringing that up, I do want to make just a quick statement. Many people in the community know this week that one of our good friends, local player Andy, had a tragic loss, and amazing. It was really cool to see the community step up.
Yes, totally. Like if you haven't seen that already, make sure you take a look at ways to support Andy at this tough time. And then 1 second, let me get this real quick.
I can't talk. It's like the Jesse thing all over again. Different, but when our community is impacted by a loss like this, an unexpected loss, it's just like, man, it's just it's heartbreaking. So
okay, let me load this image. Okay, I'll save this here.
And you just ran off our last listener.
Well, then there you go. As they're waiting for me to
so future listeners, Jeremy's taking the time to share this with you.
What is going on here? And of course, like, I never have any technical problems, and then now today I'm having technical issues. Okay, I want to save this. So why isn't it showing up when I go to...
I will say StreamYard's a little pain that you can't just copy and drop stuff in with a copy and paste. You've got to save the file to share it.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm saving the file, but then when I look at downloads, it's not showing me. Let me change files and then come back. Okay, let me do it this way. Let me do present or share screen, Facebook, share. Okay, so here are all our prizes for Masters. We have a couple more. Yeah, we have a couple more beyond this for our first place. So first place Master, first place Paragon, first place Sports, and first place Paint will receive to one of these bespoke plaques an additional.
Is that a medal in between them? What is that?
Those are our team medals.
Okay.
So we have both a first place, second place, third place plaque that has our bespoke logo we did for this Masters, and then we're also our team award receives a custom resin printed and painted medal.
Nice.
So your region will receive your team
the whole kit caboodle.
Yeah, the whole because we're doing our best region score, not on top 4 of your. It's all 8 players.
Right.
So then that means if your score counted to your team winning, you should get a medal. So yeah, and then also too, as you'll see, I'll share this. We got some custom dice.
That's cool.
Everyone's going to be receiving 2 custom dice for and then we'll have some extras there for selling. Here's a close-up look at our medal. For example, that's for best.
Is that a Conan shield?
Yeah, just like a cool from the mind of Scott Holcomb.
Love it.
That's super anyway, cool. So tons of stuff for Masters. If you haven't already signed up, sign up for Best of the Rest. I guarantee you are going to walk away with some awesome stuff and a great experience. So it's worth the money coming out this year.
Well, sir, it's been great talking to you. We haven't chatted
awesome.
like just a while. A little impromptu off the cuff thing. I love it.
Definitely. And we'll release this episode in podcast form too, right?
We will. I'll let you know what? I'm gonna let you do it. How's that? You can edit it. It's pretty short at only an hour.
Yeah, so, I'll get it edited and we'll get it out there.
Perfect. Well, awesome, guys.
Awesome. Okay, cool.
Thanks everybody that watched while we were live and those that are watching in the future. And as always, don't forget to keep countercharging.
Yeah, for sure.